show. Welcome, Jo Squires, the Midlife Clarity Coach. I'm so excited to have you here from across the pond.
Thank you very much for having me. It is beautiful sunshine here, and I am in the northwest of England. So, yes, technology is a wonderful thing, isn't it, when it works?
Oh, I'm so grateful. Yes. Yeah. Tell us about your journey and how you became a midlife clarity coach.
So, I am 51 and a half as we speak, and heading towards my 49th birthday. I was offered redundancy, which I took from the world of corporate finance. I had been in the corporate role for 26 years, so over half my life at that point. And for most of that time, I absolutely loved what I was doing. I had been diagnosed with depression during those years, and had never really hidden that. I'd had three really serious bouts of depression whilst I was working in corporate finance. But as I say, I'd never really hidden it, and I was always known within the business as a people person, and always one for encouraging people to open up as much as they could, because there is a massive element of loneliness, and there is still a stigma around depression as well. Um, and that's what kind of led me to where I am now, because when I took the redundancy, I just felt absolutely lost. And it was many years. I'd been married and divorced, and I'd seen relationships come and go, um, always heading down the same path of self-fulfilling prophecy for me, which now I know why
Mm-hmm.
I need go through no longer. But yeah, the midlife clarity coach came about when, after I took the redundancy, as I say, I was completely lost, and I didn't even recognize my sort of surroundings. It just felt wrong. Everything just felt wrong. And you hit that midlife point where you realize you've kind of been putting up with so much for such a long time, and you think, is there more out there than this? I'd been sitting at the top of my pay grade for a number of years because of the years that I'd been in the financial business. And that kind of has an effect on your confidence as well.
Mm-hmm.
That unless you take
God
a
say hello.
different
Is that your
yeah,
new puppy?
she's there in the background, 15-month cockapoo. She always has to make herself known.
Of course. What's her name?
She's called Maya. She's a little black cockapoo. She is
Oh,
beautiful.
oh,
But
very
yes,
sweet.
they say don't work with children and animals, don't they? And
Uh,
definitely one of those in the house. Yeah, she interrupts at the most crucial points as well, which is
right.
always entertaining. Um, so yes, I literally had lost myself, and I didn't know where I wanted to go. I'd lost the confidence, like I say, because I'd hit the top of my pay scale because of the number of years that I'd been in the business and the progression that I'd made. And I couldn't see myself getting any further. I knew I didn't want to go back into corporate. I wanted something different. And in fact, I didn't think I wanted to work for anybody else. I kind of wanted the best of all worlds. So I wanted the income, but I also wanted the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in effect, is what I have created through going through a life coach myself. I hired a life coach pretty quickly and thought, that's it, I'm going to invest in me. Now is the time to do this. Now is the time to make the changes. And that's only 2 years ago that, I took that step, and it really has changed my life around massively. And I've learned manifestation skills that I never imagined I would. I live in a beautiful home with my mum and the puppy, and life is just absolutely brilliant. So I'm one of those
Fantastic.
people who is relishing midlife.
Mm.
And in fact, it was a coach of mine who came up with the title, the Midlife Clarity Coach, and it's just a bundle of fun from where
Mm.
I'm sitting.
Yeah, I can tell. And, as I told you before we started recording, your spirit and enthusiasm to help other people and your positivity and the things that you post in the group that you have for midlife women, it just speaks like authenticity to me. There's nothing that's trying to push you into anything or, like make anyone feel a certain way that they should be forced to get a life coach, but it was a I want to get to know this person and she's been through some stuff. So I would love to hear what Jo at 40 looks like or looked like compared to Jo at 51.
Oh my goodness me. Yeah, probably my eyes now tell the tale so much more. There was a lady that I used to work with, a very good friend of mine. She always used to say, as soon as I sort of walked into the office, let me see your eyes. And she could always tell how I was feeling.
Mm,
And the minute she would say that to me, that was it. The eyes would well up. I was very, very used to putting on a front, very, very used to putting on an air of confidence because I was in a position that people would come to me for guidance. I had some very important positions in the business. I wasn't way up the rankings, don't get me wrong, but the positions that I was given and the positions that I took on in the company, it meant that I was often in front of a lot of people.
mhm,
And so I got used to putting that defensive armor on and really being somebody for a number of years that I wasn't. I kind of was getting used to at the age of 40 the thought that I possibly wouldn't have children, which has been a major thing for me as well because I don't have children.
mhm,
And now at the age of 51, I've gone through that acceptance. And actually, for whatever reason it is, I was not meant to have children.
mhm,
One disclaimer is I did have a termination in my early 20s, and that is what led to the depression,
mm,
apparently. I was diagnosed with what they thought was postnatal depression.
mm,
Um, it could have gone on. I could have had depression for years before. We just don't know. Depression is a very intriguing and interesting um, phenomena. That's all I can
mhm,
call it.
mhm,
I have been very lucky in the medication that I have found. It has balanced me because,
mhm,
in effect, that's all I needed. I just needed the chemicals that were missing to be balanced out, to be rebalanced, and that's
mhm.
what they've done.
Right.
I joke about them being happy pills. I know that I've done so much inner work, so much processing of the things that I've gone through, reframed so much of my life, and I now understand so much more about myself that I feel so much more free.
Mhm,
And that's probably what comes through, in the posts that I post in the Facebook group and on my social media. I don't try to be something I'm not. And
and
I am so blessed to have, I haven't got thousands of followers, don't get me wrong. I have a lovely community that I love posting into, whether that be a joke of the day or whether it be Friday funk. I always put a bit of a tune in there on a Friday just to get people ready for the weekend. And I just like to have a natter, as you can probably tell.
mhm. Yes, I do. And I really um I'm just intrigued in several different ways because I can't imagine you in finance. You're just so bubbly, but I imagine if you were in finance, were you kind of the glue that was holding some of the pieces together?
It's interesting you say that because I've had a number of roles during the years that I was in finance.
Mhm.
One was head of customer complaints. And I was told that I was the only person that could make training around customer complaints sound interesting.
Oh my goodness.
I also delivered the initial training when anti-money laundering first came about,
Mhm.
and we had to get the business up to the right standards from a risk and policy process framework. And I delivered the first training around that as well across the business. And one person said, "You've got the perfect voice for radio," which I didn't know whether to take that as a keep your face away from the crowds or you've actually got a nice voice to listen to. But I know that I am quite soothing and quite calming with it. Um, the last few years that I was in finance was a different role completely. And hands up, I took that role to avoid redundancy sort of
Mm,
midway through my 40s. I didn't want redundancy at that point. I wasn't ready for it. And so I stepped into this role and had 5 years in an audit role, which was very, very formal, um, very not me.
Mm-hmm.
I did everything I possibly could. I did everything by the book. I did everything by the rules as they should have been done, did a good job of it, but it just wasn't me.
Yeah, I
And
can.
that's what finally quashed me, I think. And,
Mm-hmm.
when the redundancy offer was there, it was like, I'm taking it now.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, I can see where I've had several women, myself included, where all of a sudden I just wanted something different,
Yeah,
and I just wanted a challenge. I wanted something to light me up a little bit, and I was looking in the wrong places. And it's funny now looking back how there were a few job interviews I had that I thought, oh, this is the answer. I say that with quotes.
yeah,
And now looking back a couple years later, I can see where that clearly was not the right answer, but it was cute that I tried, right? It's cute that I thought I could just
absolutely.
like force myself or challenge myself and throw myself into something that just wasn't me.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate as well. Now, you were talking about your relationships. And of course, this is Sexually Speaking with Shannon. So we talk about intimacy and relationships and how to
yeah.
have better relationships, not only with other people, but with yourself.
Hmm.
Can you give us some insight on the patterns that you saw that kept popping up and how you approach intimacy and your relationship to yourself and others now?
Absolutely. So I would say the one pattern I kept returning to was desperation. I craved attention from a partner to the point that money wasn't any issue for me. Money was not an object, and I would throw myself, not literally, but everything that I had into that relationship. I would throw money at it. And ironically, every single partner that I have been with, I think bar one, has gone on to either marry the next person after me or certainly been in a long term relationship and had children with that next person. So, what does that say about me in your experience? Have I prepared them for that in life?
I'm not sure. I'd have to have more on the story, but it does sound like a very solid pattern, depending on how many people.
Yeah, it
that was.
was. Yeah, I kind of discovered boys when I was doing my O levels, which is what, 15, 16.
Mm,
Um, and they kind of distracted me for a good few years. I had a vision, I guess, a fantasy of what marriage would look like.
mhm,
And I got married, and Mr. Squires will not mind me saying the proposal came out of an argument.
mm,
And it was almost like, well, if I asked you, you wouldn't anyway. And it was like, well, go on then, dare me. It was that kind of approach. And I think I liked the idea of being someone's wife,
mhm,
of feeling complete. Now, an, an important factor within my life is that my parents separated when I was 11. Um, and much of the way that I dealt with my life and the way that I looked at relationships has linked back to that. And
mhm,
I know that I've processed that and I know that I've reframed everything around that. It makes absolute sense.
mhm.
When
Yeah.
it comes to the intimacy and the relationships, the last few relationships that I had they did not involve intimacy at all. They did at the beginning, but then it was more like I've made their life comfortable. We've created everything that we've wanted in this relationship, so that bit doesn't matter because actually I'm not attracted to you anyway. And that's certainly not a this is me really feeling sorry for myself. That was the pattern that I went through.
Mhm.
So, I would crave the thought of being hugged and having their arms wrapped around me and
Mm.
everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be fine. But actually, it was me that put that out. I didn't receive it.
Right, right. It was the idea and the like the movies that maybe you watched as a kid that seemed like the fantasy, or even just the fairy tales that we hear
Yes.
are all related around someone finding our glass slipper and taking care of us the rest of our lives, or waking us up with a kiss from our
You,
slumber.
you will giggle because it's country music that I blame for that. Because I am a country music lover, and yeah, how many how many songs have I sat and listened to and just wished somebody would just sing that to me?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
it's incredible, isn't it? But you know what? That is the way that my life has been. I have learned so much from it, and now I am learning to love myself for who I am.
Hmm.
So, coming back to that point about learning to love yourself, the relationship that you have with yourself, it's taken me many, many years even to accept these curls on the top of my head.
Those
And
beautiful
they are me.
curls.
They
Yes.
are me. That's just, yeah, whatever mood I'm in, you can tell because the way the curls go. They are absolutely natural. And for years and years and years, I've tried to straighten them, and I've just really struggled even to accept them.
Oh my gosh. And people would
Um,
love to have those beautiful curls. For those that can't see Jo's hair, we're going to have her Instagram link and how you can get in touch with her in the show notes, but she's got a beautiful head of curls, and it suits you so well.
I think they kind of jump out, don't they? And they show my eyes and they show my face more.
Yes.
And that is something that has taken me, I would say, a good 40 odd years to accept. As we do though, don't we? We get to
Hmm.
midlife and certain things happen to us, life happens to us,
Hmm.
and we get to a point where we think, sod this.
Yeah.
This is exactly as it is now. And we are also at a point where we go one way or the other, I think. And this is where we come in as coaches, as mentors, as guides. We've either lost our confidence for one reason or another, generally because life has happened. We've listened to the people around us, we've listened to the way that we should be,
Hmm.
the way that we ought to be behaving, the jobs that we should be doing.
Hmm.
Um, or now we get to a point where we're building our confidence again because all these ties around us are loosening
Hmm.
and life is changing, demands on us are changing. And it's an incredible feeling when you get to that point where you do think, I don't care anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, there's
But
so much power in that.
the empowerment that we can bring and we can encourage and nurture out of people,
Hmm.
it's incredible. And I think we said it earlier that, the more we open up and talk about what we're going through, the more other people will do the same. And there is a strength when women come together and women support each other
Hmm.
that you don't get anywhere else.
Hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful strength of combining.
Hmm. Of community. Yeah,
Mm.
that's one of the first things that I have my clients look at is where they are in their relationships, and looking at my aunt calls it drains and faucets. Who are the drains in your life, and who are the ones that are giving you life, giving that growth and that support that you need through this journey. And I know you had a coach, but what were some other tools that you both encourage your clients to do or make use of, that you implemented, that helped you learn to get back to your body, to get back to yourself, and to know that you were loved just as you are?
It really is about going and doing the inner work.
Hmm.
Because as you said, you could be looking almost for permission, or you could be looking for the answers outside, when really everything has to come from inside ourselves. And I'm doing it as we speak. I'm holding on to my chest, I'm holding on to my heart. Everything is inside us. And one thing that I encourage in all my clients is to work their values. What are their values? What is important to them at this point in life? What is important to you now and for the future? Not what was important 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when your children were young, when you first started out in work, when you first got married. What is it that is important or is missing in your life now?
Hmm.
And I encourage people to really do that inner work. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of patience. and commitment to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really starting to have the confidence to accept who you are, not to hate your body anymore. You know, we all moan about being too short, too small, too wide, too narrow, too heavy, too light, whatever. We're not happy with who we are until we learn to accept what our body has given us. And for many, that is a beautiful family.
Mm-hmm.
It's helped support us through all sorts. And we should be thankful for that, not constantly berating ourselves for looking the way we look.
Agreed. Agreed. And sometimes we don't even realize how much we're berating ourselves. I caught myself this morning and yesterday being a little listless, having a little energy, and I started to, you should. The minute I hear that inner voice that's saying I should,
Yeah.
and then I stop, and it's almost like, taking a step back and looking at, all right, where is this coming from? Is this coming from the jobs that I've had in sales where it's supposed to be, numbers based? Or
Yeah.
is this something that I learned from a teacher, really tapping into? And you said we all have it within us right now, and you were touching your heart. I had my hand on my belly,
Yeah.
my gut telling me what I
Yeah.
need to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, finding that space where you can go back home, which is to yourself, to figure out what feels good to you. And also, just building off the values. And that also is such a huge thing. Just three, right? Like
Yeah.
3 or 4 to start,
Yeah.
really be that guiding post of where you want to go.
Yeah.
This morning, I had a call with someone. I'm looking for nutrition and workout people to help women that are going through menopause, because it's a whole another ballgame. It's no longer hustle, crush it, all those very masculine approaches to exercise. But I'm not a nutrition and physical, coach. So
Mm-hmm.
I was interviewing someone, and they hopped on, and, I set a schedule with them. They hopped on Zoom, and she had her camera turned off, and immediately she launched into a script of like trying to, okay, Shannon, what are your goals for exercise? Because this is your goal, right? And I, knowing what I've learned in sales and walking through that, I stopped her and I said, I just want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you hopping on here, because she's learning through this experience too. So there's nothing wrong or right about this experience. And for some people, this would be to the point and work for them. But I knew if I stayed on that call, I was going to have an hour of frustration and not feeling it. So it didn't feel good. And I just said, I don't feel a connection here. And I just want to thank you for your time. In the future, I would love to like see your face and be able to interact and connect with you. And I just thank you. And I got off the call, and I was just like, man, 5 years ago, I probably would have stayed on there and then had this inner like frustration because I wasted my time, wasted
Yeah.
their time.
Yeah.
So not only knowing what your values are in that sense, but also being able to notice when things aren't aligned with your values so that you can stop them and deflect and put your roadblock up so that they don't affect your energy.
Absolutely. Quite early on in the process that I work through with my clients, I'm quite organic,
Mhm.
in the sense that you don't know what life is going to throw up. So, yes, you might have a 14, 15-week program that you know the lines that you would like to go along,
Mhm.
but sometimes life throws things up in the way. But importantly, pretty early on in the process, we talk about the values, but we also talk about boundaries.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
things that are no longer serving us, there is no harm in pushing those to one side. You know, we know what social media is like. We can block people on social media. I don't necessarily agree with that,
Mhm.
because that really is avoiding the situation by blocking them. And that's just as bad as people compartmentalizing issues that they've had in life.
Mm.
You know, at another point, that will come back and bite you on the backside, as we say over here in the UK. It will
Mhm.
come back and it will grab you at a time when you might not be ready to process that and to handle that. So, actually, just work on what is important to you, but have clear boundaries. And I always say to my clients as well, make them clear what your boundaries are to those around you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard a phrase, the only people that will suffer from you having boundaries are those that benefited when you didn't have them.
Ooh, that is good.
And that was a lovely lady, Lisa Johnson. She's a strategist over here in the UK, business strategist. Brilliant phrase. And it
That's
really, you really need to sort of sit in on that one and
yeah.
let that one sink in. So the only people that will, what did I say? The only people that will suffer from you having boundaries are the people that benefited from you not having them.
So good.
It's deep, isn't it?
Yeah, that is very good. That's tattoo worthy. Tattoo on one foot.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely right. It's difficult when you've never had those boundaries in place
Mm-hmm.
to start putting them there. And it doesn't mean you're putting blocks around you and you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
let people in, anything like that. It's knowing what works for you. And
Mm-hmm.
as you've just alluded to, realizing that that situation wasn't where you wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
you would be wasting your time, you would be wasting her time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just accept this and we'll go our separate ways.
Right. And gosh, it felt good to just get off the phone and just be like, whew, all right, and be able to just like put it behind me.
Yeah,
Whereas in the past, I would have ruminated a little bit.
yeah.
So yeah, that feels really good.
I can imagine it was one of those moments, wasn't it, where it was just the deep breath in and just the release.
Right.
And you
Yes.
kind of look and you think how it could have been. No, but it's not. It's so
Mm-hmm.
much better. So
Mm-hmm.
much better. Oh
So
yeah.
much more. So what else do you want to share with our midlife people? Like for those that don't maybe understand the gravity of the experience of perimenopause and menopause, the things that happen during midlife. Maybe just some general context of what your experience has been through like the culture of menopause where you live. And I could talk about this whole topic for hours and what I've learned, but I would love to hear your experience.
I have been very, very fortunate personally. There is a lot going on in the UK around menopause and menopause awareness, and there are so many specialists now. And one thing that we do find is that our GPs are not as aware of menopause symptoms as we would hope that they would be. And so there is a big drive at the moment. It's all going through Parliament to really enforce that. GPs can't know everything. They are general practitioners.
Right.
That's the whole point, isn't it? So they can't know
Mhm.
everything. But the other thing about menopause is that no one person's symptoms will be the same as the lady sitting next to them. And it is so difficult in that sense because what we are also finding is that symptoms of depression and stress and anxiety are often misinterpreted as perimenopause and menopausal symptoms.
Mm.
I am 51 and a half, as I said. I am now in month 7, possibly month 8 of with no period whatsoever.
How exciting.
I am absolutely sailing through it. Now, I have had hot flushes, I think.
Hmm.
I don't know whether they were hot flushes, whether it's just something comes over me. It's not like I don't get the same feeling of a hot flush as many ladies that I know have gone through, where they've literally felt it start at their feet and come
Hmm.
up and take over their whole body.
Hmm.
That's what many ladies have spoken of. I just have this where my head gets hot and my nose goes bright red.
Tall tale
Slightly
sign.
obscure, slightly obscure. And I do get hot at night, but that's all I've had.
Hmm.
Now, a few years ago, I had gone for a good few months without having a period, and I said, look, I just feel all over the place hormonally.
Hmm.
The brain fog really hits,
Hmm.
confusion, forgetfulness. And I went to the GPs then and I said, can I have a test? Because they can do the blood tests to see where you are in the scale.
Hmm.
Um, and the nurse took 2 sets of bloods the same day. separated them into 2 vials. They came back, and the doctor that I saw had to go and see the head of the practice to confirm, because one said I'd sailed through it and was out the other side, and the other said I'd nowhere near started.
Uh-huh.
So there's no
Yeah.
wonder that we get confused, is there?
Right. Right. Yeah.
But I get some of the symptoms. I've always been lucky with my skincare. I've taken care of my skin, so I haven't suffered with any of the acne or
Mhm.
anything like that that many other ladies suffer with from a skincare perspective. Yes, I've put some timber on, I've put some weight on, but that's possibly because for the last few years during COVID, I've spent a lot of it sitting on my backside at my desk.
Mhm.
And your hormones do change, don't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the testing, the testing situation is tricky because you can take that test in the morning on one day and the next day have it be totally separate, or like yours, have it be totally separate. I've heard that there are tests that you can take at home, which I don't know how effective they are, but I think remaining like curious with where you are and tuning into your body and tracking your cycle, tracking your symptoms that you have can help show a pattern that will keep popping up. And yeah, so that's great. It sounds like you haven't fed into the narrative that menopause is like gloom and doom.
I've probably been the opposite.
Oh, good.
Don't get me wrong, I am not Mrs. Toxic Positivity. I am not like this all the time.
Mhm.
And indeed, in my Facebook group, they know if I've had a bad day. I will
Mhm.
always share that. Because what is the point in being a coach, a mentor, a guide, if all you show is the great, amazing stuff? You have to be that authentic person.
Mhm.
You have to let them know that it is normal to go through the ups and downs that you do, particularly midlife, menopause, perimenopausal, postmenopausal. Who knows how long the symptoms will last for?
Mhm.
And I have ladies all ages in my Facebook group and on following me on Instagram as well. And we're all going through so much right now. Coming out of COVID the way that we all have done, life has changed massively, but it's making us sit down and realize and recognize that there is more to life. And now it's the opportunity to actually find that. Um, but yeah, the brain fog,
Mhm.
incredible brain fog. I do deal with that and laugh and joke about it. So I'm guessing that that is linked. Either that or I'm just losing my mind completely.
Mhm.
Who knows? Um,
Maybe, and that's okay too for a minute.
that's
You can
it's
always
normal,
regroup.
isn't it?
I've been putting
Absolutely.
I've been putting like frozen, what did I do the other day? I put something that belonged in the freezer in the pantry and my husband's like, um, did you mean to put the frozen peas in the pantry? No, whoops, or putting pantry items in the fridge. And I've also heard that some people have been diagnosed with ADD during
Yes.
perimenopause when it's brain fog, and trying to distinguish between the two is
Yeah.
important as well. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's very it's a very close thing, isn't it? It's a very fine line
Mhm.
between a diagnosis of anything to do with menopausal symptoms. Fibromyalgia is another thing. A friend of mine has recently been put onto HRT medication, been prescribed the HRT medication because her fibromyalgia had actually hidden the menopause symptoms for
Mm.
quite some years. And the human body is an amazing thing, isn't it? But
Mhm.
yeah, you say about, I haven't gone down that narrative of the doom and gloom of it. I just don't think I could. I
Mm.
honestly don't think I could, because what is the point?
Right.
What is the point? It's not going to change it, is it? And
No.
there are times that, you hear people talking about it. And yes, of course, we sympathize and we have empathy for them. But as with anything, the more you focus on something, particularly the negative, the more of it you will attract.
Mhm.
And so if you focus on having a headache, you're going to have a headache. If you focus on being not how you want to be, you will continue to be not how you want to be in whatever way, shape, or form that is. And as I say, I have my good days and my bad days, the same as everybody else. But we get through them, don't we?
We do, especially with the help of others. When you share those tough days, what's the typical response from your community?
It's funny because I tend to get pity.
Hmm.
And it's like, that's not what I'm doing it for. Perhaps my message hasn't been clear enough when I put it out there. It's to say that this is normal.
Right.
These things do happen. Even coaches need guidance.
Hmm.
And coming back to the point that you made about sort of logging and tracking your emotions and your feelings, journaling is one thing that I massively advocate, because although there is quite often a misunderstanding around the purpose of journaling and the way to journal, or a way to journal, it captures your best days, it captures your best feelings and your best emotions, not just the negative. And so it builds and it focuses on the positive, and that can bring you through those days where you are down. And I'm not medically trained, don't get me wrong, I couldn't diagnose anything officially, but you get to see those patterns, and you also know your body, don't you?
Hmm.
You know if your body is not behaving as it would normally behave. You know if there is something slightly different.
Right. Yeah. And advocating for what's changing and not just accepting
Yeah,
a quick fix, but really trying to look at how can I get more sleep, or
yeah,
do I need to move my body in a different way and try something different? And of course, as a sex and relationship coach, I'm always advocating orgasms because that helps release a lot of stress and boost your dopamine and all of those things. So
and it costs nothing.
it costs nothing and you can do it yourself. And I know some people have some challenges around that, but that's what I work with is, the shame and the frustration that some women feel when they're disconnected to their body, bringing it back so they know what's important and what's of value to them.
Yeah,
So it sounds like we're doing similar work in different places and focusing on just the supporting these women through this experience and
yeah.
helping them come back to their body and come back to their love for themselves and
And their
being
true
compassionate.
selves, like we said, their true selves, feeling compassion for themselves,
Right. Right.
really starting to have a lust for life again.
Mm.
Because you do lose it. You do lose it. Even if you've been in a marriage or relationship for many, many years, there's always something, isn't there, that you can do to reignite those sparks.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And I
You'll
can,
be the expert in that area.
yes. And I'm on the other side of the relationship with my husband who went through some depression, and being the support, the partner on the other side of that, not knowing what it's going to look like 5-10 years from now, but really trying to figure out how I could be my best self so that I could support him and still be a parent and, own a business. That was all a whole journey that most of the people that listen know about.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I'm grateful that you're here today and you've got a program that is coming up that you're offering, right? Did you want to share that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's 6 weeks, your journey to health and happiness. And I make it clear right from the start that I am not medically trained. However, I have done an awful lot of training, coaching, and experience within looking into our souls and looking into ourselves. So I cover the emotional, I cover the practical, I cover the physical, I cover the financial, and I cover the spiritual. So over the 6 weeks, you learn so much about yourself, because self awareness is the main place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a self study program. So it's all self paced, which I think is something that people will really appreciate now, because they're not going to feel, okay, so I've got to go into this particular module on this day and then I've got to be done for next week when the next one comes out. It's self-paced. It will be one of those modules that one of those programs you can go in and out of as you please, and you will have lifetime access to it. It's not going to disappear. It's coming out in a couple of weeks time, so we will share that information, we will share that link. And it's just something that will bring so much more to your lives. I know you will appreciate it. It's taken time, it's taken experience of the coaching clients that I have worked with, and also the work that I have done with myself. So it covers all areas of your life, because we look at the outside and the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And when people hear the spiritual, they're like, oh, that's a bit too much, like woo-woo, it's a bit too
Yeah.
out there for me. It's not. It's a subtle introduction. And when we talk spiritual, it is just getting close to ourselves again.
Mm-hmm.
It's not looking on the outside, it's looking on the inside. And as you said, holding onto your stomach,
Mm-hmm.
learning to trust your gut, your intuitive senses. We often wish that we had trusted our gut, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Many
Yeah.
decisions that we have made. So, yes, that will be coming out very, very soon. And then I am launching a group coaching program as well. So, that will be a 16-week group coaching program. Details will be coming out soon for that. It's not yet launched. So, I kind of want to keep it quiet just for now, but it is coming and I am very, very excited about it.
I'm excited
Very
too.
excited.
16 weeks that is a like recipe for consistency and support along that. And you're the Midlife Clarity Club on Facebook, right?
The Midlife Clarity Club, it is a place where there is music, there is fun, there are jokes, there is skincare, there's makeup, there's just generally getting through midlife, because my tagline is midlife should be fun, not a crisis.
I
And
agree.
it's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely true. So, yeah, feel welcome to come along at any time. You can hop in and out of the club. You don't have to be there all the time. I just love it. I just love the environment that is in there. And we need people, don't we? We
Mm-hmm.
need people around us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the fact that we all comment on each other's comments, within the group, and there's energy to it.
Definitely. Well,
So,
thank
yeah.
you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me. It's been very enlightening.
Yes, and I'm excited to hop in that group and help with the sexual piece of that, which I'm sure
I think
everyone.
that's something that we Brits tend to hold back on.
Yeah, a lot of
I think
US
I
does too.
speak for all of the Brits
Mhm.
in that sense.
Yeah.
There's an element of embarrassment around it. There's a bit of a, oh no, and we might
Hmm.
appear a bit prudish, but actually it's so important. And like you say, that release element, you can do
Hmm.
it yourself. It's free of charge. Just
Right.
get on there and do it.
Right. That's what we are. So Joe and I are prescribing that all of you leave this podcast unless you're driving. No, I tell people
Or
don't vibe.
handling machinery.
Yeah, don't vibe and drive if you have a vibrator with you. That's not safe. But if you get a chance, just check in with your body and as I say, having that release also expands for more pleasure and more opportunities. So, all right, Joe, we'll have a fantastic day. Thank you all for joining today. And I encourage you to hop on the Midlife Clarity Club and check it out.
Thank you so much.